Recording is definitely in progress. I'm going to share my screen, every single bit of it here. All right. And let me pull up one of these just so is that a PSD? Yeah, that's a PSD. I'll pull that up really quickly and I'll add some texture here. All right, so let me go to my Entourage folder. Let me find some grass or something. I'm not encouraging everybody to put lots and lots of grass in Las Vegas. But in those, like, I totally love having public parks with grass that everybody can use. Everybody has access to, particularly on hot times of the year like this. When you go there in the evening and you can almost feel the coolness radiating from it, it's actually fantastic, right? Let's see, Entourage. Right. So I could always find some grass cover or something. Let's see. But let's say I'm gonna try to find some grass here. And I'm going to do this very quickly. Yeah, open. Sorry, this is the camera raw. I'm going to do something similar here in that I'm going to go all the way. Well, no, I'll just go all the way to the top. I'm going to paste. I'm going to start making a new layer of grass here. So a couple of things I'm going to do. I'm going to paste a couple of places here. And realizing that there's a perspective here, I also have to sort of mind that. All right. And now I'm going to take all five of these layers that I've, one, two, three, four, five, just up pasting the same grass in each time. Normally, I would try to find similar grass, but different. And so it doesn't look like it repeats, but I'm just going to merge those layers together. And I'm going to pull out my favorite tool in Photoshop, Clone Stamp, wherever that is. There we go, Clone Stamp. I'm going to hold my cursor over. I'm going to push the Alt or Option key, depending on which operating system you're using, your hardware. And I'm going to sample a little bit over here. And I'm going to make sure I have a brush that's nice and soft. I'm just going to try to get rid of some of these edges, especially where I have creases and where I have things that are repeating. I might try to go over them and change them up here a little bit. Let's see here. Let's try to find a mid ground and see, I'm not doing a very good job. Normally, I would be much more careful here, but occasionally I'm holding down that Option key or Alt key and selecting something that I then want to sort of use to fill in over here, and it remembers relationally where things are. So I can begin to try to mix this stuff up. But let's say I just have some grass here. And I'm going to go ahead and put this layer all the way down almost to the very bottom here, if not the bottom, underneath this base rendering here. Okay. And then on my base rendering, let's get rid of, let's get rid of this. Right, there's my grass. So now I'm going to use the base rendering and I'm going to get up really close. And I'm just going to use my eraser brush. I'm going to change the size so it's appropriate. Something soft round and something smaller, something like that. And I'm gonna go look for, there's all kinds of brushes here. I'm gonna go look for a grass brush. Let's see if I can find it here. Dune grass and grass. Here we go. What you're gonna see me do is just simply erase that top layer in the shape of grass blades and let that grass layer pop through. Doesn't look like they've mowed the grass in a while or done a lot of edging yet, but now when I zoom out, you have that soft edge, right? So that's one way you can use your brushes and your, erasers are just brushes, paint's just brushes, dodge and burn just brushes. But you can go through here and quickly soften up that edge. vary it in elevation a little bit so it looks like it's sort of mounting up in different places and right? It doesn't look too bad from back here, does it? Yeah. So that's one way you could begin to do it. It's all about just sort of nuance, scale, zooming in, little attention to detail. You're in a perfect place for it, right? You have the big thing moves in place. Now you can start to focus on some of the detail. So that's something I might encourage you to sort of think about. This is back when I first learned Photoshop, back when the dinosaurs roamed the earth. It drives me crazy not to finish this out. Am I getting close to the end? All right, here, let me just get a high spot here. Try to get rid of some of that edge there. There we go. Of course, this brush has pressure and hardness. Oh, actually, I guess it's just one thing with this grass brush, so never mind. Just size. You can always go down and get a nice little sub layer here and then go back over it and get something higher and sort of layer it up. You can see that was using the same grass just over and over again. Doesn't look perfect, but it doesn't look terrible either. All right. Anybody thinking about water on the ground plane? Showing water. Probably not too practical unless you're the Bellagio. But you know the easiest way to do that? Let me get rid of this grass now. Let me do that by let's see, save as. No, no, no. Let's see. Do I want to save this? I'll save as. Yeah. With grass. I'll save that. I'll close this one without saving. Okay. I'll open up the one I just saved with grass. And I'll open up the one I didn't just save. There we go. So let's say we wanted to make some water and let's say down here even. Sorry, let me get my cursor. Even let's say down here. One of the things I could do is, sorry, crop and the ratio is set to something. Let me just unconstrained. Let me crop this. When you use the crop tool, you can sort of crop things in, of course, or you can just expand your canvas, which can be handy sometimes. But let's say I had water down here and reflection. A couple of things I might do is take whatever I want to reflect in that reflecting pool, and I'm going to make a copy of it, and I'm going to mirror it downwards. So I'm going to take this base rendering, haha, and I'm going to copy, and then I'm going to select all, then copy, then paste. I'm going to use this. I'm going to go again to my tools, transform tools, and I'm going to flip horizontal. So now oh, sorry, flip vertical. I don't know why I did horizontal. That flip vertical. So now it's mirrored downwards. Where'd you go? There we go. All right. Now I'm gonna, oops, move this new one down here somewhere. Just zoom out a little bit so I have a little more real estate
I
here on
see.
my screen. Let's go to transform. Ooh, let's go rotate. Sure, why not? What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to line this up down here as best as I can anyway. Not sure what I'm looking at here. Oh, I see. Bunch of
Yeah.
junk. I guess there's a bunch of junk down there. That's weird.
Did you grab the right one?
Okay. Really quickly, I'm going to take this layer six. What is this layer six? There we go. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the stuff that's down here. That's part of layer six. Just blow that stuff away. Okay. Smell you later, layer six. All right, base rendering right here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and now here's a couple of things, right? What I can do a motion blur downwards, right? So I can go filter, blur, motion blur. When I do that, it brings the motion blur box up. I can change the direction of it. I'll turn it to like the 90 degrees, and then the amount of blur. All right, there we go. Now I'd probably also put some sort of sky behind this, but then what I would do is I would use the smudge tool. Maybe the smudge would work. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it a kind of a light. Oh man, that's really lagging on my screen here. And then last but not least, I can find a water pattern texture of waves or ripples that would match this, and then add it as an overlay layer. Now, of course, I'd also want to have some sort of layer underneath this that has the sky and things like that. So I'm not saying that this is absolutely great. But this brings up an important thing, which is while I'm recording, okay, that's fine. I'm going to show you where I got this little trick from because he does it really well. Alex Hallgriff and Visualizing Architecture website. He is an absolute magician with Photoshop. So I highly recommend checking this website out when you have a chance. Of course, I completely butchered the spelling it out in the Google search, but so he does a magnificent job of using Photoshop in a lot of different ways. But what's great about it is he also posts tutorials. So you can look at it and find a 5-minute YouTube video on like how he did something, right? So an interior pool rendering, pools, let's see, landscapes, adding grass, water reflections. That's what he did, water reflections. And that's simply taking this, motion blurring it downwards, adding a ripple, and then doing you can see he actually did the smudge tool as well, right? And in fact, he shows it here on YouTube. So I highly recommend this site, visualizingarchitecture.com. You can find all kinds of tips and tricks when it comes to these sorts of things. Window light, ambient occlusion, cutting out objects. He's really good, and has an interesting, great sense of great sort of instinct when it comes to the tool, Photoshop as a tool and the effects that he wants to sort of pull off. Let's see, is there anything else? Adjusting color overlays, vignetting, atmospheric fog, sun rays. Here we go. Right. So there's some sun rays for you. So you might look and see how he's doing it. What I suspect is that when he's going around selecting something, like let's say an image through here, let's go back to this one. It's a little more clear. Let's say I have something coming from this direction, from an opening up here, let's say. What I suspect is that he's using this option right here and feathering it out. So if you go with something like 40, let's see what happens when I start to fill that in with white. Why am I doing this the hard way? Let's make this brush a lot bigger. Okay. So now what I'd have to do is I'd have to go back in and reselect that then with the feather option set to 40. See how the feather works? Now the problem is the stuff that we have right up here. Oh, I'm drawing this right in base rendering. Hold on. Let me make a new layer way up here. New layer. Let me go ahead and do this. Right. The problem area is right up here. Oops. Where there would actually be a really sharp occlusion um, along this edge. So what I might have to do then is take this brush, say I'm going to add to the brush, add more beyond, color in some things that obviously aren't going to work. So go beyond. And then what I'll do is I'll come back with a crisp line and delete that stuff away. All right. So sorry, I got to get zoom out of the way here. I'm going to turn down the opacity of this quite a bit. But now as a next for the last step, I'm going to have to sort of get rid of the parts that don't really make any sense. I'm going to go back to my polygonal lasso tool, set the feather back to 0 or 1. Come on, 0. Zero's over here. There we go. All right. And what I can do then is get rid of everything in that glow that's over here. So I'm just going to use the erase tool now and set that to a normal tool again instead of grass. And I'll just get rid of, oh, come on. There we go. Just get rid of the parts that don't make sense. Right. So there's a couple of steps to it. And then again, I can always go back and say, oh, if that's too much, I can always, maybe I just want it to look just ever so slightly like that. But that's how I would get that sort of softer edge. When I'm doing the polygonal lasso tool, you just have to, you might have to do it a couple of times until you sort of understand every step you have to take. Because you'll do it and you go like, oh shit, I got to back up. It doesn't make any sense anymore. I forgot to extend it past this surface or whatever. But anyway, that's kind of how I would approach it. And I don't think this quite looks right. That shouldn't be a sharp angle. That shouldn't be a sharp edge there. But I should have just sort of ended it right up here. So again, I would have to go back and redo that. In fact, I might. Wouldn't take too long, right? What I can do, I can easily just unselect that part. All right. Now go back in with my, oh, sorry, with my eraser tool and delete the crap out of it. There we go. Oh, no, it's still doing it. I guess I didn't. Oh, I see. I hadn't actually. There we go. Oh, okay. Try to act a little smarter for the rest of the day, hopefully. I'll just get rid of it here. Yeah. All right. All right. So, and then whether or not, or another way of thinking about it, I mean, there might be a way to, um, use these two, oh, sorry, go right here and go, where the blend, let's see, blending options, right? You have these options over here. In fact, this is the way to make a lightsaber in Photoshop, if you're ever curious about that. You know how to make a lightsaber in Photoshop? We might as well, right? All right. So let's see here. I'll just do a polygonal lasso tool. I'll make this guy a Jedi here, I guess. I don't know, whatever. Um, what's going on here? Make a new layer. Oh, I see. Polygonal lasso tool. I was like, what's going on? Yeah, anyway, we'll give this guy a, oops, thought I double clicked. Nothing could be further from the truth, Photoshop. The reason I'm showing you this is it could be useful beyond just sort of making a lightsaber, but it's still a lightsaber is pretty fun to make, right? Anyway, let's make him a Darth Vader or something here. Give him a red one. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to fill this in with red. But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on that layer that I made that I just entered this stuff in. I'm going to deselect everything for a minute, do blending options, and I'm going to go to inner glow, and there should be even an outer glow, right? So I can turn on outer glow. And let's see here. Spread. Oh, I see. I still have to select the color. I'm like, why is it not? And then, of course, I could do an inner glow. Maybe I set that inner glow to white even. Let's see here. Inner glow. Oh, wait. Hold on. What I'm going to do, I'm going to make this white. Let's do that. And then I'll make the outer glow red or something. Yeah, that'll work better. Anyway, I think you can see where I'm going here, right? Like, it's really quite simple. And it's a fun thing to do if you have like, a kid or cousin or something that's into Star Wars. With their image, their photo. Let's see. Da-da-da-da-da. But suffice to say, let's see, blending options, outer glow. That green looks weird. Let's do red. Right. Anyway, you get the idea. All right. Not that I want lightsabers in my rendering here. Okay. So there's a few things that you can do just to help you with some of the details there. Like I said, what I wanted to do is I wanted to make it match up um, with what was potentially looking like a sort of a hole that light could go through back behind this platform, right? And that it lined up with the edge of the shadow over here, so that whatever. But I'm also not afraid to maybe tone down quite a bit actually. Let's see here. Yeah, down to 52. Tone it down quite a bit, the opacity. So it might be more or less subtle depending on how depending on if it's a overcast day or a bright day, the weather we've been having, right? All right. So, couple of things to think about there, right? You can always try to soften up edges with, again, erasing the shapes away from the top end layer. And then you can always sort of look through these textures. These textures aren't really helpful. Like if I'm just trying to make grass, they would look really cheesy, right? I mean, let me just explain, right? Like if I said this and I came in here and said, well, maybe I'll try to make green, this green or something like that. Um, and I just want to try to find the grass tool. Let's see wherever that went. Did I already pass it? Good grief. Crosshatch. There you go, grass, right? Like it's going to look cheesy. I'm not going to be able to make grass with it. But you can see it's actually pretty effective if you have grass underneath and then you use it just to sort of occlude the grass like a mask, right? All right. So those are some things. Now, let's say I also want to, I mean, there's a depth thing here, right? So for instance, if I go to the grass layer, another thing I might do is go to the Dodge Burn tool. I'm going to go to Burn, right? What that'll do is that'll let me use a brush and darken things. And I might just go over this a couple of times and darken some things up where it gets close to that edge. Oops. Give it a little more dimension, right? Maybe I do that and I look at it and I go, actually, I don't really like that. I'm going to undo that, right? Kind of like the bright grass against it. So you can always play around with this. One other thing I might mention here that I didn't the other day, but I'm recording, so it might be helpful to sort of go over with you guys is simply this. I'm going to go ahead and keep the grass layer selected. There it is. And we talked about these tools over here, image pull downs, adjustments, brightness, contrast, exposure, color, etc. But you can also make an adjustment layer. What this does is this allows you to remember the adjustments that you make as layers. And then they're parametric, so you can begin to change them slide rule, or even just delete the layer, and then you can get rid of the transformation that you did. It's non-destructive, in other words. You can sort of reverse things. So if I wanted to, for instance, edit things like curves, levels, brightness, contrast, exposure, color balance. Let's say I go to color balance and I want to add some more golds and make things a little warmer, make it more olive and a little more orange, right? What I can do is I can use that color balance tool. Now look what the color balance tool is doing. It's doing everything to all the layers below it. So you can see it also did it to this grayscaled background, which I didn't want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my cursor over the color balance layer and hold down the control key. Let's see, or option key. Let's see. Which one is it? Command? Maybe I hold it over here. There's a way just to sort of click this, and then that way you can just apply it. Oops. To just the layer that's immediately below it, sort of linked it up to it. Let's see. Layer mask is linked to layer. Let's see here. But it should, I'm looking for putting a key on here that changes my cursor from the little hand like this to an arrow that sort of loops back at the layer below it. There we go. I'm holding down the option key and I'm on the edge between the two. If I do that, then suddenly you can see it just drops down with this arrow and says, I'm just doing layer 10 now, right? Now I can go back in here, and if later on I go, man, that lighting, that color effect looks really kind of crappy. I don't necessarily want it anymore. Before I'd have to go back in, and there's no way to undo this after a certain amount of time, right? And even in a PSD file, if you use the image adjustments tool. However, if you use this tool, then suddenly I can go back here and hear all the settings again. I can adjust it back the way I want, or I can just get rid of the layer entirely and it goes right back to the same coloration. So that's how you can do things non-destructively with these adjustment layers. And all the sort of most of the tools that we saw over here with image adjustments, with brightness, contrast, exposure, levels, curves, all that kind of stuff, color, things with doing with lighting and color, you can find over here as well. Okay. And that way you can sort of put them in layers that are then, it's almost like David, you'll appreciate this. Some Grasshopper, right? You have the sliders that you can begin to adjust things. And you can open up that PSD anytime you want and start to readjust as you need as you go further. All right. So anyway, um, there's just a little more Photoshop details to blow your mind, hopefully. Uh, but let's see what else. You know what? It could be the same with shadows, right? Like you always sometimes it's like, do you want soft shadows or crisp shadows, right? It's always a sort of a big deal. But let's say I wanted to take this person and I wanted to make a copy. Come on down. All right, here we go. And I'm going to, let's see, Command T or Control T just for a free transform. I'm going to bring him down here like this. Not very well, I might add. I might, ay, let's see. There we go. That way I can match legs with legs and feet with feet in a more satisfactory way. I'm going to look at the overall sort of average of the angle of this and try to match it with the angle of the other shadows being cast. Right. From here, I'm just going to do a skew, what is it? Transform skew. Right. I'm going to try to again match this up a bit. Oh, come on now. It's really annoying how this thing reacts sometimes after you've done something crazy with it. It wants to find a perspective and then have you follow the perspective, which could be handy if I was more, I don't know, dexterous with this tool. But um, so one of the things I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and hit OK, done. Right. And I'm going to go ahead and turn that transparency down. But I have a few things to clean up here, right? Maybe I will move this up just a bit, try to get it to match up a little more. I'm going to turn down its opacity quite a bit. But what happens if I do want to, again, um, soften it up, right? Maybe it's a little too edgy. What I could do is I could select color range, right? Oops. Maybe not color range. Let's see. I'm in this layer, right? I'm in the right layer. There we go. Layer three, and I'm just going to use the this tool. There we go. And then what I might do is I might, let's see. What I was going to do is try to make that a feathered thing and sort of go around at the edges. Um, but it looks like I'm going to have to manually clean some things up anyway. So what I might do is go ahead and up that opacity all the way again. Just go ahead and use my black brush and start to do just a little bit of what I call sort of architectural dental work here. Bring this down, sort of make these things line up a little better here. Then selectively get rid of some of them. Oops, it's a little too small or too large of a brush there. Let's get that smaller. Right. Then the other thing I could do, right, is I could make it a soft round and just go around the edges just ever so slightly. Let's see. How how slight is that? Just to soften them up just a bit, right? So again, it's always, you know, Photoshop is great, but it's not necessarily a shortcut. You still require some time and patience and nuance in order to do, a lot of different interesting things with it, right? Let's see here. I probably have butchered this. Let's see what happens if I crank this back up to about four into the 40s here. Just, oops, try to ever so slightly sort of lighten up that edge. Ever so slightly, try to lighten up those edges. Try to get rid of some of these harder edges. Okay, let's see here. And then crank that opacity back down. Right. I could soften some things up if I need to, in other words. So don't be afraid to zoom in and zoom out in order to sort of see what you're up to and doing. And you can, of course, any of these tools that are brushes, you have all these brush properties up here, like the size, the hardness. Do you want it to be a crisp edge or a soft feathered edge? Or do you want it to be a specific shape? You can see that there's lots of shapes down here. Okay. So anywho, um, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. I'm going to go ahead and